All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of my quest to get you going in Android development, what I decided to do was go off a little bit, go off the beaten path, and I'm going to write an application, and I'm actually going to write it 8 times. So I'm going to write it first in JavaScript, then in jQuery, then in C#. I don't know why that one's like that, but and after C#, I'm going to write it in ASP.NET, and then in Android App Inventor 2, and then in Java, and finally in Android. So why am I doing this? Well, there's a few reasons. One reason that I decided to do this was to kind of show you the progression that you've made over your last 2 years. That we started by writing JavaScript programs, and the JavaScript that I'm going to write isn't all that simplistic. We moved on to jQuery, we went to C#, we went to ASP.NET, we went to Java, and we went to Android. This will also allow me to show you Android's App Inventor 2. Now, the app that I have chosen, let's see if I still have it here. Okay, there's nothing in there. Good. It looks like this. All right. Right now, it doesn't do anything. It's not functional. I can put values in here and in here, but notice nothing happens when I do. So it is a body mass index or BMI program. This is the comment for it. Write a program that calculates and displays a person's body mass index or BMI. BMI is often used to determine whether a person is overweight. I should change that. Whether they're overweight, underweight, or of optimal weight. For his or her height. So a person's BMI is calculated using the following formula. Not my formula. It's something that the government or somebody else has come up with. And actually, I don't like the way that that's written. We're going to do it like this. We're going to do weight divided by height times height, or height squared, and that whole thing multiplied by 703. So that's the formula we're going to use. So weight divided by height squared times 703. Our weight is going to be measured in pounds. Our height is going to be measured in inches. So in other words, we will attempt to elicit input from the user for a height and a weight. The program should also display a message indicating whether or not the person is of optimal weight for their height, underweight for their height, or overweight for their height. Now, a person's weight is considered to be optimal if their BMI lies between 18 and 25. I'm going to clean this up a little bit here. Sorry about that. All right, so they're of optimal weight if they're between 18 and 25. If they're less than 18 for their BMI, so if their BMI is less than 18, that means that they are underweight for their height. If their BMI is more, if it is more than 25, then they are overweight for their height. So hopefully what I just mentioned to you, hopefully it makes some sense. All right. So I've also come in here and created a couple of arbitrary constant values. So as it says, Note I added arbitrary values for minimum, maximum height, minimum, maximum weight. They don't mean anything. They're not anything that the government or anything has come up with or any health organization has come up with. They're just variables that I came up with. All right. So I said that the minimum height is 12. The maximum height is 96. The minimum weight is 1. The maximum weight is 777. I also want to be able to run this program multiple times. All right. So hopefully that made some sense. So I'm going to save this. It's the wrong folder. Under BMI01 JavaScript JS, and I'm going to call this BMIJS.js. All right. Now, it's not my goal here to go over and explain how I created the HTML for this file, how I created the CSS for this file that you see on the screen right here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to concentrate in this lecture solely on the JavaScript. In the next lecture, I'm going to concentrate solely on the jQuery, etc. All right, so let's start. And again, the way that I'm writing this is not necessarily the same way you would write this, and I understand that, and that's to be expected. So I'm giving you a way that this program could be solved. So I'm going to come up and start with a couple constants. I'm going to have min height that I'm going to set equal to, what did we say, 12. I'm going to have max height, and that's going to be equal to 96. And again, not that we have to do this, but minimum height allowed. And maximum allowed. And I don't want to waste time when I don't have to here, so let's copy these. Put them down here. And we don't need a blank space there. And we'll also have our minimum weight and our maximum weight. Now our minimum weight is going to be simply 1 pound. And our maximum weight is going to be 777 pounds. All right, and that's a weight, and that's a weight. Again, these are just arbitrary values that I came up with. All right, I can run the program now, but nothing's going to happen because all I did was to declare and initialize the program constants. All right. So that's what we've done so far. Just create those. All right. So to continue on, well, we're going to be using getElementById in here. So let's create a variable. All right. Create a variable to use as an alias for the JavaScript getElementById method. Why? Just so we have a little less typing to do. So var $ equals function ID return document dot get element by ID. All this is saying is now, instead of me having to type something in like this, it's a shortcut, all right? So it's an alias or a shortcut. For that method. So instead of me saying, for example, get element by ID, all right, and then putting in here something like height, all right. So instead of putting in that, now all I have to put in is $height. So as you can see, it's saving me a lot of keystrokes. I don't have to do that, but it's something that's quite often done in programming to make your life a little bit easier. All right, then I'm going to have a main function. You don't need a main. JavaScript, unlike Java, doesn't need a main function, but since I do want a driver, and since in most programming languages a driver is referred to as main, I decided to call mine main. Main will require no parameters to be passed in. All right, so we're going to say here, create main, the program driver. And it's the function whose job will basically be to call other routines. It is a coordinator, a supervisor, however you want to refer to it. Notice here that this has a parameter passed in, this has no parameter passed in, and we're saying function with no name here and function with no name here. All right, so I really should say create an anonymous function to create a variable to use as an alias or shortcut. All right, for the JavaScript get element by ID function. So again, we're going to create an anonymous function to act as the program driver. And I've tried to implore upon you this over your past 2 years here, and that is that document when you're writing the program. Don't do it afterwards. So var height equals, and I'm going to say here parse float height dot value. There should have been a, we need this and we need this. There we go. Again, if what I'm doing here confuses you, please play computer. All right. I'm going to put a comment here that says get height and weight from their associated text boxes, hold the values in variables. So these two values here, height and weight, are going to represent whatever I put in here for the height and whatever I put in there for the weight. All right, you can say, well, you didn't put in BMI yet. Don't worry about it. We'll get to that. All right. So that's it so far. We're not done. We're not done with main. We're not done, period. Okay. Perform validation checks. So if is NaN height. So what if I left that blank? Or what if I tried to put something non-numeric in there? All right, that's going to be wrong. So if I put something non-numeric in there, I'm going to want to do something. Well, what am I going to want to do? I'm going to want to put an alert in. and I want that alert to say height inputted must be between, and I want to let them know that it must be between 12 and 96. And I already have my constants for that, which is min height All right, not even sure if this is going to work yet, but let's try it anyway. All right, so let's get back to here. Hopefully I'm in the right place. I think I am. Oh, doesn't like it. If height was non-numeric, give me an alert. All right. It might be just because I'm not complete yet as far as what I put in. All right. Oh, the other thing I want to do is, okay, so I made a mistake. I screwed up here. I did something wrong. Okay. So if it's not a number, if height is not a number, all right, I want to do the alert. And after I do the alert, what do I want to do? Well, I want to say height, $height. I want to set the focus to it. And I want to get out. So in other words, if I didn't put anything in there for the height, or I put in something non-numeric, I want to give them a message and get out. But you know what? I want to do the exact same thing if they put in a height that's out of range. In other words, if they put in a height that's less than 12, or they put in a height that's greater than 96. So I'm going to add here, or height is less than min height, or height is greater than max height. So this check right here is going to say height non-numeric. Over a bit. This will say height less than 12. And this one will say height greater than 96. Those are my three different error conditions. So if any one of these three error conditions is true, I want to give an alert that says that it's out of range, reset this, and get out. Well, the good news is for height. Okay? When I get done, I want to do the exact same thing, but I want to do it for the weight. So I want to check for weight not being numeric, weight being less than 1, and weight being greater than 777. So these all have to become W's. W, 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 W. You'll notice that much of the code we have written thus far, has been error checking code. I always liken error checking code to be similar, not identical, but similar in nature to car insurance. We all must have car insurance. We all must keep it for the entire length of our driving history, but we hope we never use it. And that's kind of what error checking code is. You have to put it there, but you hope you never use it. But like auto insurance, if you ever need it, you might need it bad. Same kind of thing in here. All right, that is it for our main function. All right, I'm going to create another function here. So this function will calculate the BMI using the formula provided above. In fact, let's just grab that formula. Where was that? That was up here. All right, so var, well, what are we doing here? We're calculating the BMI, right? And we're going to set that equal to another anonymous function in which we're going to have the height and the weight passed in. I'll just call them H and W. We don't have to. We can call them whatever we'd like. All right. So I'm just going to say return and pass that in. But now I can change this to W, to H, and to H. Little less typing. Okay. So this anonymous function will calculate the BMI using the formula provided above. Okay? We're almost done. One thing that we want to make sure of is that when we run this and we click the clear button, that clears, that clears, that clears, and we put the mouse right there. So let's do that next. All right, so we're going to write another anonymous function. I'm just going to steal this and we'll make the changes accordingly. So, how would I push that all over a little bit? So this anonymous function will handle the user clicking the clear button. It will clear the 3 text boxes. That is the height, the weight, and the BMI. And it will set the focus to the height text box. Just happens to be the one that I picked first. It's not that big a thing one way or the other. All right, so this is not going to be calculate BMI. This will now be called clear entries. We could again have called this anything we wanted. I spelled anonymous wrong in both. Yes, I did. All right. So this is called clear entries, equal function. It has nothing passed into it. And what do we want to do here? We want to say first height dot value equal. Okay, so that'll take the height box and clear it. Well, the weight is identical. So that'll be the weight. Then we've got what? The BMI. So we have now cleared the height text box, the weight text box, and the BMI text box. So we have to set the focus to the height text box. That's what's left. And that's how we do that. All right. So the only thing that's left is we have to do some association here. The system has to know when we're doing this. Cut that down a little bit so you can see it. There you go. So that's everything that we've done so far. Blow it back up. I like it a little bigger. But now we have to put in the code for our onload function. All right. Okay, so we have to write another anonymous function. So this anonymous function will be run when the program begins. It will associate the calculate button with main. It will associate the clear button with clear entries. It will set the focus to the height text box. So that's its job. All right, so this is not a var. This is window.onload. And it's going to do all the stuff we just mentioned. So let's get rid of that. So calculate dot on click. It is associating that with main. We don't want to put parens there. If we put parens, it would call main. We don't want that to happen. $, clear dot on click. We want to associate that with clear entries. Again, we don't want parens there or it would call it. And we want height, oops, oh, that's what I wanted, to get the focus. All right, hopefully I'm done. We'll see. So we've got 01 JavaScript JS BMI.js.js. No idea if this is going to work or not, and if it doesn't, then I'll have to quickly debug it. So let's come through here, 72, 111, and of course it doesn't work. The clear works, but the calculate is, well, the calculate worked there. Height inputted must be between 12 and 96. That's good. So it works when there's nothing put in there, and the weight worked. All right, but if I put in something valid, I should be getting a BMI right there. So what I'm going to do is very quickly, I'm going to pause, debug, because I'm already here at 28 minutes, and come back and try to finish this up in just a couple minutes. All right then, let's go over all the places where I made mistakes. First, all these anonymous functions have to have a semicolon at the end. So I needed to add a semicolon here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And that was enough right there to make it not work. All right. So what else did I mess up on? I think the anonymous function for my alias was fine. For main, I had this stuff originally outside of my if statement, which made it wrong. I had this outside of my if statement, which made it wrong. And probably the most important thing was I was never calling the actual routine to calculate the BMI. Again, play computer. Here are our 4 constants. Here is our alias function, so we don't have to keep writing document.get element by ID. We can just use the $sign. Here is our driver. So we're setting the height to whatever we put into the height text box, the weight to whatever we put in the weight text box. We're validating that the height is between 12 and 96. If it's not, meaning it's either not numeric or it's less than 12 or it's greater than 96, we give them an alert. We set the focus onto the text box and we return. Then we do the exact same thing for the weight. In other words, we make sure that the weight is numeric and it's greater than 1 or equal to 1, and it's less than or equal to 777. If it's not, we give an alert, we set the focus, and we return. If we get down to here, we can put a message, a little comment here that says valid height 12 through 96 and valid weight, which was 1 through 777, were inputted. We know that. Call anonymous function to calculate the BMI. So that's what we're doing there. There's the function, the anonymous function that actually calculates the BMI. Notice even though the actual parameter names are H and W, in here our formal parameters, our actual parameters are named height and weight, but our formal parameters we just shortened to H and W, which is fine. We have our anonymous function, which runs whenever we click the clear button, and it clears whatever is in the height text box, clears whatever is in the weight text box, clears whatever is in the BMI text box, and sets the focus to the height. And then we've got our last anonymous function, which associates main with the calculate click button, clear entries with the clear button, and height give the focus to when you start the program. So let's see if it now does work. Let me refresh the screen. First, let's put nothing in there. Height input must be between there. That's good. That's exactly what it should do. And if we put in an out of range value, we get the same message. That's good. So 12 and 96. Let's try 11. Got it. And let's try 90. In fact, let's try 96.1, which is bigger than 96. Good. That's all good. Now let's put in a valid height. 72. Now we should get the weight messages, right? So let's put in a value that's out of range. Let's put in another value that's out of range. It's hitting all of our stuff. That's good. Let's try 111 pounds. This person is tall but really thin. 1505. Good. Clear. That all works. How about 72 again? Let's do about 177. Okay, they're optimal weight. And let's try somebody who's overweight. Okay, that all appears to work. So what I have attempted to do in this particular first example is to write this BMI program. All right, and in this BMI program, I've written it in JavaScript to make sure that indeed it would work. All right, and we did the validation, etc. So I'm going to grab a bunch of this stuff, at least this much, and I'm going to copy it, and that is going to be the beginning of what I do for my jQuery. So I'll be back to do the jQuery part of this very shortly.